Hey, what's happening, everybody? This is your pal, Steve Brown, and catch Dave and Ty on NEZ SEZ every Thursday night on YouTube. Crank it up.
We're live.
We are.
Yeah. Today's Thursday, July 23rd, and you're tuned in to NEZ SEZ, a place where musicians can come together and inspire each other to play more guitar. Thanks for being here tonight with us. We have an incredible show for you tonight. My name's Dave. This is my co-host, Ty. Ty, what's up, brother?
Hey, Dave. Happy Thursday. It's always great to see you, and I'm so excited for the show tonight and our special guest. I mean, he's a guitar virtuoso, and he's a singer and a songwriter and an engineer and a producer and a performer. I mean, Steve Brown has sold millions of albums. He's had #1 videos on MTV and has shared the stage with some of our heroes, Kiss and Journey and Alice Cooper, Poison, Cheap Trick. One of the hardest working men you're going to find in show business, playing guitar with Dennis DeYoung and Joe Lynn Turner, and he's been on Broadway. And listen, he has played Wembley Stadium with the mighty Def Leppard. He has made this incredible record with his band Tokyo Motor Fist, possibly the best melodic hard rock record of 2020. And we are so happy that he's agreed to have a conversation with us tonight. Please welcome Steve Brown. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, guys, Dave and Ty, thanks for having me on, and everybody tuning in. Great to be here. Let's rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Cool. Dave, you want to say hello to everybody?
Yeah.
Got quite a few people rolling in.
Well, actually, let's see what we got here. So far, we have David Sher, Ben Tom, Jeff Cornell, Chris Bevan, My Honey Desiree Dornan, Susie Cherry, Fruitcake Tony.
Fruitcake Tony.
Yeah.
Isn't that a great name?
His name is Tony Neville. He actually does a podcast like this on Saturdays with Steven Rosen. You remember the guy who he's interviewed Eddie Van Halen a few times and for Guitar World magazine. Well, they do a show called Show Me Your Pick, where they collect guitar picks from all the celebrities. So that's pretty cool. That's all I got over here. I don't know if my chat is freaking out, but I'll say hello to more people as I get them. Let's start the show. So,
Steve, this great record, Lions, been out a couple of weeks now. You're getting rave reviews for this. Tell us about this new Tokyo Motor Fist record.
Well, all I can tell you is that we started recording it. I started writing the songs in January of 2019. First 2 songs I wrote for it were the first track on the record, Youngblood, and one of my personal favorites, Decadence on 10th Street, which is a total homage to the mighty Edward Van Halen and just, riff central. Probably, I'm proud to say, I think Decadence on 10th Street has my best guitar solo I've ever recorded in my career. So very, very happy with that. And yeah, here we are talking about this record that, a year and a half later is finally out, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears making it. 2019 was a challenging year for me on a few levels, but most of all that I had 3 very dear friends pass away while making the record. One of my best friends for over 40 years. So that put a lot of strain on making it. And thank God our good friends at Frontiers Records were very sympathetic and let us have a little grieving time. But you know what they say, sometimes challenging times make the best kind of music. And I think that's what happened. And, just couldn't be prouder of this record. My bandmates, Ted Poley on lead vocals, Greg Smith on bass guitar, and Chuck Berge. We took Tokyo Motor Fist to a whole nother level with this record. I didn't think we could possibly do that because I was so in love with the debut record. And, I got to be honest with you, making records, this is my 30th year as a national act. And first I got to say, holy shit, I'm fucking old. I just turned 50 last week. And, you know, here I am, 30 years of making records. We're celebrating as well the debut Trickster album, the 30th anniversary of that. So, you know, look, when you make records as long as I have, when you've been making records as long as I have, you know, it's always great because for me, I always swing for the fences. I'm always trying to hit a home run. I'm always trying to put 1,000% in everything that I do. But I feel that on this record, we really took the band, the band took this record to a whole nother level, you know, performance-wise, songwriting-wise, production-wise, every aspect is just through the roof and off the charts in my book. And it seems that the reaction to the fans around the world and the critics even, you know, the reviews that we're getting on the record are just phenomenal. And, you know, like I was saying before, you know, my good buddy who also played on the record, you know, Dennis DeYoung, that I play in his band with from time to time, he had a great analogy and a way to kind of, you know, make sense of all this. He said, Steve, we make records, we write songs, but every once in a while you write something or you produce a record that is a cut above the rest of all the other work you've ever done in your career. And I think that that's where I am with this record. And I think that's what we did as a band. So we're just, again, so thankful of that. And for all the people who haven't heard the record, please listen to it because, you know, like I tell everybody, as screwed up as the world is right now, and the country especially, if you take 45 minutes out of your life to listen to this record, I think it's going to make your life better. I guarantee that. So,
well, you know, Steve, you're a songwriter and a guitar player, and everybody's well aware of your ability with the instrument. But you also produce this record.
Yeah.
And the sound of this record is, I mean, in light of you turning 50 last week, dare I use the word mature? But it's sophisticated. This does not sound like a record that comes out in 2020. There's the vocals are huge. There's big hooks and there's just this driving force behind everything from the first track to the last track. And you know, remember when we were young and we'd put that CD in or we'd put that vinyl on, and we were always struck with like a side A and a side B. And this record really feels like a side A and a side B. I mean, it's the first 4 songs are as strong as anything that I've heard in years. And so how did this transpire? You did a great record in the beginning, and what may be unusual from other Frontiers artists is that you guys are actually playing. You guys are out playing shows.
Yes.
And it's not just a recording group. So how much did the live performance aspect help shape the new direction of the songs?
It has a lot to do with it because first and foremost, just like what you said, Tokyo Motor Fest isn't one of these, you know, record company concoctions, you know, that we've all seen. How many of these bands that are out there where, you know, these guys make these records, they never play live. Some of the records, the guys in the band, like guys who've written hit songs, they don't even write the songs. They have a producer do it. So this is a real band, you know, and it goes back to, you know, the fact that we're all like kind of like family, like brothers, you know, rock and roll brothers, I like to say, because I've known Ted, Chuck, and Greg for all of them for over 30 years. You know, I've known Ted since I was a teenager. You know, he grew up a couple towns away from me in Bergen County, New Jersey. As did Chuck Berge. You know, I remember meeting Chuck when I was a little kid, when I was probably 13 or 14 years old at Sam Ash in Paramus, New Jersey, you know, when Chuck was in Rainbow, and Jolyn Turner was there again, an old friend. And, you know, so there is that, we have, first and foremost, we have that crazy East Coast Jersey sense of humor, camaraderie, brotherhood, as I like to say, you know, bringing it back to the Bon Jovi days when John Bon Jovi coined that phrase, the brotherhood. It's very much there. And I think that that's what separates us because we rehearse together. We, though a lot of this record wasn't recorded in the same room, it has that band feeling because we've done shows and we have that chemistry together. And I think that shows in the record. And then the other thing which you brought up, which is really important, is you were talking about how it has a side A, side one, side two, an album feel to it. And that goes because, dude, I grew up in the 70s and 80s when albums were made, and we all know what that religious experience of when we would get the new Kiss album or get the new Van Halen album, where you'd buy it at the record store, you'd bring it home, you'd open up the shrink wrap, pull it out, put the record on, and you'd open up the credits. If it was a double live album, you'd read everything and read the book. It was magic. And so I still believe in the album as a whole, where as we know in 2020, it's all about streaming. It's all about one song, one video can change your career. I don't believe in that. I still believe that 11 songs count, and every song on your record should mean something. And that's what I think I've done. You know, go back to the last two Trickster records I did for Frontier, New Audio Machine and Human Era. It's the same mentality. You know, every song on those records counts. Yeah, there might be one or two that sound like singles, if you will. But, you know, again, it goes back to the way I was raised, and I'm still such a rock fan, and I'm still such a fan of the CD even. You know, and that's where if you look at the record, you know, you go into it, it's got great artwork, it's got great pictures, it's got a great booklet. Man, I still believe, and I still spend a shitload of time, because I was the art director on this record.
Oh, nice.
That's
you
awesome.
know, so, you know, it's one of those things that, to me, every aspect, from the shit that's on the inside of the record here, the type, what kind of colors we used, all of that matters to me. In, again, getting back to it, I don't want to date myself, but yeah, I will. It's the album experience, and that's what this is. So again, that's why I stress to everybody, really, you got to listen to the record front to back. And it's like, you know, man, crack open a beer, sitting wherever you listen to music, listen to it. And, you know, again, I just couldn't be more proud of this record, as you can tell.
I agree. I mean, it was the 70s and early 80s when you know, vinyl and CDs first came out. That was a magical time, because, you know, then you were surprised. You didn't hear the songs before you could see the CD or the record. You were hearing them for the first time. Maybe you heard a single on the radio, if there was, you know, if it had radio play, for like a couple weeks. But you were hearing the songs for the first time. And nowadays, I mean, you could just go on YouTube and hear everything before the record comes out. It's kind of like a little bit of a downer. But, you know, there was the same thing with going to concerts. You didn't know what the set list was going to be. You didn't know what songs they were going to play. You didn't know what clothing they were going to wear before you saw them. You didn't know what guitars they were going to use. You didn't know what the stage looked like. You know, that was all a magical time. And what you're doing, what you have done on this record, as you've brought some of this back, and that is so fucking cool.
Well, you took into account that a lot of us enjoy having a relationship with the music, you know, from how we hear it to how we see it to how we experience it in our hands. And you're right, it does. It sounds good when you put it on. For those of us that are audiophiles and we still have stereos in our living room, it sounds good there, but it's a summertime record too. It feels good in the car, and you open the sunroof and you play this record, and it really does take you back without sounding like a dated record. It's fresh, and it's really a breath of fresh air in today's musical environment.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, and that, you know, I got to tip my hat to the people at Frontier, Serafino and the guys there. You know, they come in with, you know, and they have the reputation. They are like the 80s, you know, label, and that they have kind of strict kind of guidelines. And the good news is that this is my favorite kind of music. So like I tell everybody, if you love Trickster, Danger, but also Def Leppard, Van Halen, Kiss, Cheap Trick, Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, you put all that together, Rainbow, Alice Cooper, all the bands we've ever been associated with, it has elements of all that, and then our own thing. And that's what's really, really cool about it. And then production-wise, it's a record that stands up against any modern production that's out there nowadays. And, you know, I gotta give props to Bruno Ravel, the great bass player, songwriter from Danger Danger, the Defiance. You know, he's one of my dear friends, neighbor. He lives in the next town over. So when, again, talking about taking this record to another level, I knew I could mix it, because I've mixed, you know, tons of records over the last 30 years, and you know, I'm pretty confident in what I do. But I knew that bringing Bruno in on this record was a surefire way to sonically bring it this big motherfucking rock record that, you know, like I tell everybody, like when I make records, I try to, for me, my favorite thing is if you're able to mix the best parts about Van Halen and then the best parts about Def Leppard. For like melodic hard rock, I think you can't go wrong. So guitar tone wise, I think we nailed that. There's a lot of songs that very much have the, you know, the Ed Van Halen tone, which is what I'm known for, as you can see, you know, all around my studio. And that's always what I've gone for. And then, but also that huge bottom end, that tight low end of Def Leppard with the also the Mutt Lange style vocals that I create here, and that I love to do, that stacked 3-part, 4-part, sometimes 5-part harmonies that just really just take it. Again, it's everything that I could do. My attitude with this was, let's go kitchen sink, full on, but yet it has character, and it also has that live band feel. You know, where if you listen to a song like Decadence on 10th Street, yeah, it's a big production, but if you really zero in on it, the guitar track, it's a single guitar track. And it's my single guitar track that I did when I played it for the first time. So it has that rawness, very much like Van Halen 1 or Van Halen 2, or pretty much all the early Van Halen records, where it was spontaneous. And there are some little mistakes in there. And I left that stuff because I'm like, shit, that's what gives it the heart and soul. That's and right, I actually tried to, yeah, it sounds human, man. A little fucking grit in there, some pick flubs and everything. I mean, if you listen to the soloed guitar tracks of Van Halen, you'll hear that stuff. And that's what gives it that human element. You know, on a song like Decadence, it works. But then if you go to another track like Monster and Me, which is full on Def Leppard vibe, layered guitars, clean guitars, guitar army, as I like to put it, that is very precise. And again, a very much a layered out guitar thing. But that's the coolness of, again, having my own studio here. I can do whatever I want, and I pick and choose what works, you know? And again, like on Decadence, I tried to do the big guitar thing, like Motley Crue it, you know, do 4 tracks on each side. And when I did it, I just went, this doesn't sound right. It's not right for this song. And I think that's the thing, you know, for bands out there and you know, guys that are making their own records. You have to produce each song individually, in a sense, to where you have to give each song a chance to have its own original element shine. And not every song needs the big Def Leppard production, you know, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think we nailed every song on this record. The way we produced it and the way we mixed it is perfect for each song. So again, Bruno Ravel was a huge, huge part in that.
So Steve, when did your love of production really begin? I mean, I know that you began producing with the Here record, but when did it really grab a hold of you and you said, well, I really want to kind of oversee this, and I want to not only write it and perform it, but I want to produce it too?
Well, I mean, right from the beginning, Ty, man, when we made the first Trickster record, I mean, I got to tell you, we were so inexperienced. We didn't have much studio experience. So making that first record was like going to, you know, high school and college, rock and roll high school, record making all in one. I mean, it was all encompassing and it was a lot of work, but I fell in love with it. I really, where some guys in my band hated the studio, I loved it. And especially getting to make, you know, back in the day, making that first record where we recorded in all these legendary studios, Sound City in Van Nuys, California, the Village Recorder where Fleetwood Mac and Rat did a lot of their stuff, you know, all these great LA studios and all the great New York studios as well. Right Track, the Power Station, Battery Studios, Sound on Sound, these places that aren't there anymore, but, and making it on analog 2-track tape. So I fell in love and learned every aspect about making a record, making that first Trickster record. And so it was immediate for me. And I completely fell in love with, how do I say it? Like when I was a little kid, falling in love with Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and Steve Vai and Warren DeMartini and Jakey Lee, wanting to learn all their licks and learning everything about their gear. In 1990, I fell in love with engineers and producers. So I wanted to learn everything about Mutt Lange. I wanted to know everything about Bob Rock and Bruce Fairbairn. And it was like a different thing for me. And then also learning about the aspects of songwriting that I didn't know. So learning every trick that Desmond Child did and that Mutt Lange did in songwriting. Those were huge things for me because I had already kind of got bored with the shredder guitar thing. I learned everything I needed to know and, learned about structuring guitar solo. So I'll say probably in 1993 when I bought my house that I've been in for 27 years now, the first order of business when we bought this house, my wife and I, when we bought it, when we walked in the first time, the first thing I said to the real estate agent, I said, "Where's the basement?" Because I have a recording studio. And I went downstairs, and this is where we are now, 27 years later, and I saw that it had a laundry room, which I immediately knew I was going to make in. It was going to be the laundry room / drum room. So check one. And they had this cool open area, which is where I built the control room. My buddy Maz and I, who Maz you might know for all the people out there, Maz is Ted Poley's guitar player. He was also the guitar player in Throwing Rocks, Soaked, and 40-Foot Ringo, which were my post-Trickster band.
Oh, yeah.
But Maz is also a great builder. So him and I built this studio, and learning for the first time when I had my own place and being immersed in learning engineering and recording and having that freedom, because the one thing that I always didn't like was when you were making a record, when you're paying $1,500 a day, $2,000 a day for a recording studio, there's a lot of pressure and shit you have to settle for things because it's like, come on, dude, you can't spend 5 hours on vocals here. You can't. And I was like, man, I never want to be in that position. And I learned that from, being friends with Eddie Van Halen. We talked about that at great length when I was building the studio. I was hanging with him a lot on the, on the Fuck tour and on the live record tour. And when I told him I'm building my studio, he gave me a lot of advice. And one of the things was why he built 1984 was he wanted to, when he built 5150, he wanted to have that control of being in the studio and no one not being on the clock and no one telling him that he can't do this or you can't do that. And that was a huge inspiration for me. And that's why also my studio is called the Mojo Vegas Recording Company, but it's also AKA 6160 because Ed has 5150, but here on the East Coast in northern New Jersey, I got 6160.
That's right.
That's my little, shout out to him. But, that was really it. And, if you look over right here, I'm pointing at, these are my original old DA88 Tascam. These are the original machines that I had when I built the studio because I didn't buy the ADATs. I bought the Tascam D88. So I'm actually in the process, as you can see, of transferring all my digital stuff to Pro Tools. I've been doing my analog, the first Trickster recordings that we have from back in 1986. So this pandemic, I've been making good use of all this time that normally I'd be out on the road. So getting back to your question, yeah, it's been one of those things since 1993, 94, when we recorded the Trickster Undercovers record here. So that was the first record that we did in the studio here. And that's really when I learned everything about my own recording studio and learned and fucked a lot of shit up, erased a lot of stuff. And, it's trial and error when you're doing it. I had a great engineer, this guy, Gene Porfido, who did some of the Trickster stuff on here with us. But he was the guy who really taught me the ins and outs of studio. And again, it was like learning guitar, learning about all the gear. I fell in love with it, you know, and it's just been a love that it's never ending. And every day I'm learning new stuff. And, you know, I'm just, you know, again, I'm blessed because as much as I love being out on the road and I love being on stage, I love being in the studio creating. And I think you can hear that on the, you know, on the last couple records that I've
Absolutely. You know, I hear it. I've heard it on pretty much every record that I've heard you play on. You sound, it shows. It shows in the records because you guys are having fun. It sounds like you're having fun. The sound of the records are second to none. The playing is fantastic. It just sounds like you got your shit together at a very early age, and you just kept on going and getting better and better and better. You know, I gotta say, Steve, you and I have been friends for like 16 years now, and our mutual friend Brian Gabriel introduced us.
Yes.
When I saw you play with a cover band. You were doing like Van Halen covers.
Yeah.
I think somewhere in Jersey, and Brian introduced us, and like from the word go, you and I became like that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. And you know, I owe you a life of gratitude because I look up to you as a rock star, you know, and my friend. And
Well,
I'm so proud of everything that you've done.
First
Really
and foremost,
stuff.
that's what it is. And, you know, look, man, it's about you have that enthusiasm that I love. And, you know, I meet people, you know, it's very rare that people have that enthusiasm. And for me, you know, the thing about it is, dude, and everybody listen out there, this is what I love. I fucking love this. I love my gear. I love learning. I love, you know, I'm still that little kid, man. When you know, I'll never forget when I was starting to play guitar and I got my first, you know, I got my first two pedals when I was a kid, the little big muff, the electro harmonics, little big muff, and the small stone phaser. Yeah. And man, when I stomped on those for the first time in my Sears Roebuck guitar and amp combo that I got for Christmas in 1979, I mean, it was like, man, everything, my world completely changed in the greatest of ways, but I still have that feeling that like I'm a little kid because I still get that when, you know, Ed Van Halen or, you know, the EVH Gear guys send me, I just got the new lunchbox thing. You know, I still get that same buzz when I plug into a new piece of gear, and it's really awesome. And I hope, you know, people see that enthusiasm that I'm not, you know, and believe me, man, there's a lot of things I'm jaded about the music business. And, you know, it's tough as hell and tougher than ever, but thank God I've had success enough to where I'm not dictated by money. I do this for the love of music first, and my love of doing the art of it, playing and recording and creating. Still, that really means a lot to me, and I hope, you know, people see that. And I hope that for all the people that listening out there and watching that are musicians, never lose that vibe. And Dave, I get that from you, and Ty as well, that you still have that enthusiasm as when you were a kid. And that's, you know, that's the key, man, because look, we all know how hard it is. And believe me, it's never lost on me how lucky I am that I'm like, you know, the 0.5%, 1% that has ever had, you know, millions of sales and all the cool things I got to do in life with rock and roll. You know, I'm the extreme minority, but don't let that discourage you. Make music because you love to, not because you want to be a rock star. I never did. I did it because I just loved it. I was one of the lucky ones who caught the tail end of the 80s hard rock. And luckily, 30 years later, I'm still, you know, able to talk to people like you guys and share my story and share my music, most importantly.
Well, I have to, if there's any silver lining out of COVID-19, it's the fact that guys like you have the time to do this with us. Because if it wasn't for this virus, you guys would be on the road. I'd be getting, hey Steve, can you come on? No, dude, I can't. Get me in 6 months, man.
I would make time, guys. Certainly, well, man. You know, hey, look, man. You know what? Again, getting back to this end of it, which is another thing for all the musicians out there. You have to. And I was talking to somebody today. We're like, man, how do you get through this pandemic? And I learned a long time ago. And again, this goes with the love of music. I learned a long time ago, to be successful in the music business, you have to be an octopus. You have to have your tentacles out in every way, shape, or form. So before this, I just got done doing a Skype lesson, I was doing working on some music today for another record that I'm producing. You have to have multiple streams of income if you want to be, a self-employed musician. So I can't stress that enough. So everybody out there, find other ways, dude. If you can edit videos now more than ever, every musician, I'm going to tell you a great piece of advice: learn how to make your own videos, learn how to edit, learn how to do social media, every aspect, because there's a way for you to make money out there and survive during pandemics. I mean, who the fuck would ever thought we'd be in this position? Certainly not me. I mean, damn, 2020 was supposed to be the biggest year on paper in rock and roll touring history, and look what happened to it.
Yeah, in the toilet.
Dave, let's say hello to a few more people. We've got quite a few folks here, and I'll get through as much as I can.
Yeah, please.
Really quickly. Susie Cherry's here. Hello, Susie. Our good friend Ben Coombs is here, one of the nicest guys on the planet. Michael Bishop, Dennis Brialt is here. Dwight Bailey, the inspirational Dwight Bailey. I love all your videos, Dwight. Let's see. John Harden is here. John, good to see you this week and hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, John, you should have your guitar. If you don't already have it, you should have it maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. John won our guitar giveaway last week.
Oh, yes, cool. Yeah, you told me about that. Congratulations, John.
Our good friend Chad is here. Jeff Cornell is here. Mr. Nesdall is here. Bent Tom, good to see you. John Biel, hey, John. Beverly Cooper Tours is here. It's nice to see you tonight. Brendan B. Squared. The great Cameron Brown is here. Wayne O'Curie is here.
Hey, Wayne.
NEZ SEZ alum Caleb Rappaport is here. Hey, Caleb. Guitar Man 45 is here. Thomas Santiago, Mark Dillon, so many people. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, everyone.
Steve, do you know Caleb at all? Caleb
I do. Yeah. I do. Not very well, but I've seen his stuff. Great player, and I just saw he got one of the new EVH Frankensteins.
Yeah.
So I saw his post. So way to go, man. I know. The neck's really good. You keep telling me. So I might have to call the guys over there and get a little 50th birthday present.
Absolutely.
So, Steve, do you tell us about the gear that you use to record the new record with?
Well, I do a bunch. Again, recording. I'm always experimenting with different things. So, I have my staples. My head rush pedal board, which I love. I've been like a floorboard guy for 15 years, and about a year and a half ago, my good buddy Adam Reaver from FU Tone introduced me to Brian and the guys at Head Rush, and I just fell in love with it. And I'm always, of course, doing all these fly dates. I don't like using, bringing like pedals and stuff. And again, I'm a floorboard guy, so I love the fact that this has everything that I need. I'm able to put in my own IRs and really get that direct, because nowadays a lot of it the amp doesn't even matter that I use, and sometimes I don't even use an amp, because a lot of the shows I do we're all on in-ears. So this is just, again, the technology of guitar stuff and the modeling and profiling is just through the roof. And I love my Head Rush pedal board. I have a preset pack that I've designed that I did for them that's available for free. So all the Head Rushers out there, make sure you get it. Very, very all you Van Halen fans will love it, because when I do my tones, I sit here, I set up, I have a Van Halen, I take snippets from the records and I put it up, and then I put my guitar sound, and I'm able to work with the EQ and really, really get it as close. My one main patch that I have in my Head Rush, which I used a ton on the new record, is really, really close, in my opinion, to the Van Halen crunch. It's got that nice silky top end, the Brown sound. Hey, I'm the Brown sound.
Yes.
But it's really cool. And then, of course, every once in a while, I got to admit I'm very lazy. But for some of the stuff, Decadence on 10th Street, the rhythm tracks, I mic'd up my 412 EVH here with a 57 old school. I actually spent a lot of time with Mike. I think I have a 57 that's 30 years old, probably when I got my studio. And I mic'd it up, And, that's the sound, the rhythm sound is just that straight in. Bruno did some EQing. And then on this record, for the first time, another cool thing that I did was, thanks to Bruno, I used some of the cool new guitar plugins that are out there. I'm not going to mention any names because none of those companies gave me an artist discount, and I'm a little bit pissed off about that, but it's okay. But I'll just say that, they're some of the ones that you probably see heavily advertised. But all I can say is the guitar plugin world, the stuff has gotten so good as far as the feel of it, and that was always the issue for me, why I never used them in the past, because the tones have always been good on a lot of the stuff, the older stuff. But now with the way the algorithms and I don't know what they do, but it feels so good. So I used a lot of that on the record. And, again, it's experimenting and my love for guitar. So I'm always trying to see what else is out there. And the cool thing about the guitar plugins was I did some of the guitar tracks out on tour. When I was out in November and December, I was out doing this thing, The Wizards of Winter, with Greg Smith and Fred Gorhow, who was another great guitar player. And I recorded some of the guitar parts. So I wanted to be able to not have to lug my pedal board into the hotel room or onto the tour bus. And dude, I got to tell you, it was like life-changing. Sitting on a tour bus with my MacBook Air with Pro Tools, plug in a guitar and be able to have these godlike guitar tones on the bus and not have to have any external. I plugged my guitar right into my Focusrite interface. And it was like, dude, unbelievable guitar sound and consistent. So I could even if I only got half the guitar track that I want, I could go back a week later and punch in, being that it's only the DI track that you're tracking. As long as you have the level set the same, it's perfect everywhere. So I could do a guitar track a year ago and then go back, if it's a DI track, go back a year later and fix a couple parts, and the sound is perfect. No, not like the old days when you used to have to take Polaroids of, miking your amp and pray that you had this right signal chain. I mean, I still have papers from 25 years ago making the Trickster Undercovers record where we had the Polaroids, we had the amp settings, we had the mic pre-settings. It's like fucking crazy. I don't have time for that shit anymore.
Hey, we have a couple questions in the chat. Actually, one's for me, and I think Steve can answer the other one. Blackjack Guitar Nut says, Dave, I bought a Kramer Body HSS snakeskin. What Floyd would you suggest for it? The 1000, 2000, or 3000? Well, I'm going to say, because we have an FU-tone in Dorsey here, I would first say get the FU2 bridge for it. But if you don't want the FU2, then get a 1984 reissue Floyd Rose. You can call them direct. But those are the two that I would choose. Yep. And the other question is, Dennis Brialt says, are the 5150 guitars as good as the Wolfgang Special?
I don't have a Wolfgang Special. I have my, my trusty over here, my trusty regular Wolfgang Stealth. But I love these guitars, man. And this is a cool one. I don't know if the kids can see it out there. I sent this up. This is the the basic 5150 series, but I sent it up to my good buddy Mike Palermo up in Canada, and he reliced this because I just wanted to take it over the top. And I told the EVH Gear guys they should do a line of these, like relics, like Ed had on the 2015 tour with his white guitar that was really relic. So they did, Mike Palermo does amazing relic jobs. And but I love this guitar, man. It's been like my main. I use it on a lot of the record, and again, it's one of those things to where, as we all know, it's in the hands. But I love the way these feel, so that just goes to show you. And I have, here's the special, the custom, So this is a what, a $900 guitar, and this is a $5,000 guitar. I love them all, But for the money, you can't go wrong with these. For a great all-around guitar for $899, you probably even get it cheaper somewhere else. I love it. You can't go wrong with these.
Yeah, those things with a good setup are really good guitars.
Yeah, that's the key.
Really.
That's the one thing with these. you know, the overseas guitars, you have to bring them to a great, you know, luthier.
Right here. Bring him here.
Oh, you bring it to Dave. If you're in, yeah, wherever you are, to have it set up. That's the key. And then another cool thing, which I just got turned on to last year, making this record again from Bruno Ravel, because he's just, you know, and he's been telling me for 10 years. I got a guitar with an Evertune bridge. And for everybody who doesn't know what that is, look it up. It's for the recording studio. It is one of the, like, again, it's a game changer, as I like to say. Like some of these guitar plugins, using the Evertune guitar. I got one of those Solar guitars from Ola England. His company gave me a nice artist discount, so I bought one of his guitars. Fantastic guitars, but the Evertune bridge is like a game changer. So that was another time saver, because Evertune bridge, perfect intonation everywhere up on the neck. So I did a lot of the rhythm work on that, on some of the songs, especially like Monster and Me, where, you know, when you're layering tons of guitars, intonation is so important. With the Evertune bridge, everywhere you play up on the neck, you're doing the high jangly stuff, perfectly in tune. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think with those bridges, you can be up to either 20 cents sharp or 20 cents flat on any string, and you're still in tune and perfectly intonated everywhere on the neck.
Yeah,
and that's for you. For those of you that don't know how far away 20 cents is, 20 cents is fucking Rocky Horror Show. You play an E chord, and it is horrible. It's horrible.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I think up to 7 cents, maybe the ear can't hear it. Some ears can, but 20 cents, oh, it's just terrible. But
yeah,
with an Evertune, it's right in tune.
It's definitely worth. I definitely would suggest anybody who's got a home recording studio, you know, you get a guitar or two with that on it, and it is just, you know, you read the reviews on it, you know, and I'm not I'm not trying to sell it, but it's one of these cool little tricks, man, because again, I don't want to be spending. I mean, I did it for years where I had the rack mount tuner sitting here and plugged in line, and then even, you know, lately, you know, you have the snark up here, and then for some of the high stuff, you have to sit there and tune to play a chord, or it's just, with the Evertune, you don't have to do any of that. It's just you can create and not worry about what the intonation's like.
Mm-hmm. So here's a question for you, Steve. This is from our friend BB Ninja, who's halfway around the world. It's probably 3 a.m. where he is. It says, can you please ask Steve, does he do anything special with his in-ear mix to make it less of a disconnect?
Well, I mean, that all goes with the band, you know, like, you know, I tell everybody playing with Def Leppard, the in-ear mix, it's like listening to the greatest live album you've ever heard in your life. You know, and there were times when I played with them where I actually forgot that I was playing because it sounded so good, and I'd be like singing, you know, I remember one time doing Let's Get Rocked, and I literally, you know, when you probably heard when people say they go outside of themselves sometimes performing, where you just like with the crowd, 20,000 people going nuts, the sound, the lights, I was like in another world, and I like for a second there I forgot that I was actually playing and singing, because it sounded so good in my ears. It was like, I was like, holy shit. And I had to reel myself in and like slap myself on the head and go, come on, man, get back to fucking earth. You're on stage with Def Leppard. You better not fuck up. So
I've got kind of a silly question now that we're talking about Def Leppard. You're in great shape as it is. Like you're like really svelte. But what kind of training do you need to be in to be on the road with Def Leppard and run around those humongous stages and get back to do your vocal lines?
Well, the first thing you have to remember is that you're competing with, you know, Phil Collin, who at 62 years old is probably in the best shape of, you know, he's in better shape than most 21-year-olds. So that right there is enough inspiration. And, you know, and for me right now, you know, another thing, you know, I don't want to get preachy on you, but I'm celebrating 15 months of sobriety. I finally gave up the rock and roll party lifestyle. So I'm on a whole different trip now. And yeah, I can say that, yeah, you have to be in great shape. And look, I always was. I would, even when I was partying, I still would shake myself out of bed and go work out. And because, you know, look, man, you still got to fit into size 29 leather pants or spandex pants when I'm playing with Rubik's Cube, you know. So, but being that I'm sober now, I have a completely different, you know, sort of regimen. And getting that shit out of your life is it takes away a lot of the work, because you know, now I just feel great. It's natural. But that is a lot of work, man. And with Def Leppard especially, we have a trainer out on the road with us, this guy Eric the trainer, who is unbelievable. So workouts every day. And you know, the older you get, the harder you have to work. And he always said that to me, man. He'd be like, man, come on, go to the gym, go do this. And you know, again, I grew up in an athletic family, so it wasn't hard work for me. But I'll tell you, man, that 2 hours on stage, especially on the big arena and stadium stages, it's a workout. And you have to be in shape. And playing and singing from the workout is being able to put on a show, throw the shapes, and then be up there and not be out of breath when you got to sing, you know, let's get rocked. Yeah. Or, you know, picking up the pieces. So again, vocally, for all the guitar players out there, you know, you've seen me say it before. Practice singing. Become a singer. I can't stress how important that is.
Yeah, I'll go even one further. Stand up when you're practicing. Play your guitar and sing the parts while you're playing them.
That's what I do, man. In my studio, I got like a mirror, not a mirror, but my window that goes into the drum room. I open up the curtain so I can see myself, work on your moves, work on your singing. Basically, dude, when we were when I started Trickster in my parents' basement, I learned, I don't know where it was, but somebody told me, dude, make sure you look cool on stage. Don't be sitting there looking at your neck. So what I did is, my parents had this old, huge mirror that they had in their bedroom. I set it up in the basement where we rehearsed. And I told all the guys, I said, when we're rehearsing, look at yourself while we're playing. Act like you're performing. And if you don't look cool to yourself in that mirror, you're doing something wrong, and fix it. And that's how we got our chops. And I still kind of do that to this day. When I'm getting ready for a show, I practice in my basement like I'm rehearsing, like I'm playing live. Right. You know, it's kind of like Michael Jordan always said, man, you know, practice like you're playing a game. So that's what I do.
Yeah. A lot of people think, well, you know, that's posing and stuff, but you know what? It's not. You guys are on stage and you're entertaining people. You need to be an entertainer. You need to be sort of an actor. You need to do that stuff. You're not playing in a bar for 50 people or 40 people or 10 people where you don't have the room to even move you bop your head. You're on a big stage. You need to entertain the people, and that's part of the practice. It really is. And you notice the guys that do that have a better chance of going further in their career as musicians.
Well, for sure, man. And no matter what, man, look, go back to Van Halen back in the day. They had people helping with choreography. They worked on choreographed moves, which I think they got from Kiss. You know, Kiss, of course, had Sean Delaney, who taught them all those moves back in the day. It's so important, man. And none of it, you know, dude, listen, man, I remember when I was a kid, I always thought David Lee Roth was everything he said was off the cuff. And it wasn't until I got all the bootlegs from like the 1984 tour, and every show was exactly the same, because it's a production. It's no different than a Broadway play. You know, when we're with Leppard, and with any big band that I play with, whether even back in the Trickster days, we had a set rehearsed show that we did. And though the great frontmen like David Lee Roth or even Joe Elliott, they make it seem like every night it's a new thing, but it's pretty much everybody's doing the same thing. Same with the moves and the choreographed, you know, being on what part of the stage. It's all part of the thing, and it's something that most people don't look at. And Dave, you made a great point. I can't stress this enough. Guitar players, you gotta practice standing up, because how many guitar players do we know? I knew this when I was a kid. I would see these guys, man, that I knew when I was real young, and they'd sit in their room and they'd play like this. right? They'd have the guitar up at their up here, and they'd be unbelievable. And then I'd go see them play a gig, and they were terrible, because when your guitar is down here and you're trying to do all those things, it's a totally different ball game. So it's one of those things. And it's funny, man, Guitar World had an issue, I think 2 issues ago, where it was like the top 100 things you need to do to be a better guitar player. And I read it, and playing standing up wasn't in there. And I wrote those guys like a bunch of emails. My buddy Tom Beaujour is a writer there. I was like, dude, how did they not get this? You got to make them do another issue. Playing standing up is like the top 5, you know, play to a metronome, play standing up, you know, so important. So yeah, that's another one for all you guitar players out there. Yeah. And then when in doubt, always take your guitar and put it up to the camera and do that, and everybody will love you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, lots of questions in the chat about Def Leppard, and the short answer is yes. Steve has played in Def Leppard both chairs for Vivian Campbell and for Phil Collin, and Steve, I think the story is that you had very little time to prepare the first time that you stepped in for either player. How do you begin to wrap your head around preparing for a gig that big on such short notice, taking into consideration everything that we just talked about?
Well, look, again, in 40 years of playing guitar put me in that position. You know, I worked my ass off to be there. People ask me all the time, dude, did you ever think when you were a little kid that you'd be playing with Def Leppard and, you know, playing with Dennis DeYoung, or, you know, the success with Trickster? And I say, well, that was the goal. You know, I mean, that was what I worked all my life to be. You know, I had 10,000 hours in by the time I was 14 years old. How do you prepare for that? Well, what you miss with Def Leppard, you know, when I started with them in 2013, when Viv got diagnosed with cancer, I had 6 months of time before I did anything with them. They sent me a hard drive with all the songs in Pro Tools Live so I could map out. So the Vivian thing was, I had a lot of time to prepare with that. Then I went on tour with them in 2014 on the Kiss and Def Leppard tour. And I was doing sound checks to get ready for my first couple shows at the end of 2014. The Phil Collin thing was a total emergency. And honestly, I don't think anybody thought we'd ever be in that position. But again, you know, and the Def Leppard organization and Phil especially entrusted me, and Phil, you know, gave me the confidence when he was leaving that night, when I got a call to where, you know, Phil had some family emergency and had to fly home. You know, they said, can you be in Albany in 4 hours? And I said, of course. You know, they're like family to me. You know, this goes back, my friendship with those guys, and Phil in particular, goes back to 1987, 88 when I met them on the Hysteria tour. So I'll be there for them anywhere, like I would for any of my friends, you know, if anybody needed me in a life and death situation, which this was. So it was very unique because with Vivian, you know, and I played, you know, 7 or 8 shows already with them. So I knew the catalog, but when they called me to take Phil's spot, I had to completely change my brain over and learn the vocal parts, which with Def Leppard, you know, and I've said this before, the vocals are just as important, if not more important, because Def Leppard, just for everybody, so you know, they don't can any vocals. There's no samples. There's no backing track that Joe sings along to. There's nothing on tape. As hard as that is for some people to believe, it's always been the case. You know, and they work extremely hard at that. And Joe Elliott told me before the first gig I ever did with them in 2014, he goes, Steve, I don't care what you do on your guitar, but just make sure you get all your vocal bits. And that was a big thing where I was like, holy shit, I guess this really is serious. You know,
I remember the first time you told me that stuck in my head.
Joe's a big dude, man. I'm 5'7.5" or whatever, 5'7". Joe's 6'3". He's a big dude, and he was like, I don't care what you do, make sure you get those vocals. And I was like, all right, man, I'll get it. You know, I'm like, don't worry, dude, I'm not gonna mess up any guitar parts either. But
how about this? Not only the vocal part, but your total head has to change. You have to change your Les Paul style guitar from what Vivian plays to playing a tremolo guitar and playing all the parts correctly with all the tremolo parts, and do it without a sustainer. Because Phil uses a sustainer on his guitars, and the sustainer is usually always on, so he gets this constant guitar sound, where on your guitar it may drop a little bit because you don't have a sustainer on.
Yeah, I mean, so again, getting back to it, it's one of those things that dude, listen, man, I have no fear in life, no matter what it is. It's like, man, the biggest regret anybody ever has is never taking a chance. So no matter what it is, I'll give it a shot. Somebody calls me. I've actually gotten a call. A big band called me, dude, we need to fill in for a bass player. Can you do it? I go, yeah, I could do it, but I'd rather give it to one of my friends that's a real bass player. But shit, if I'm the only one that you have, I'll do it. It didn't work out, but that's the attitude, man. Hey, man, might as well jump. David Lee Roth, Van Halen, just take the shot. So look, it was one of those situations to where, and Joe Elliott, as he's his way with words, he said to me, somebody's got to do it. It might as well be you, mate. And that was it. That's all I needed to hear. And so the greatest thing about it was when Phil was leaving, the sort of seal of approval, he said before he left, and he told everybody, told the guys, he said, there's no one on earth that could do this except Steve. And that was, first off, for me, it was like, for a second, I was like, oh, shit, don't put that kind of fucking pressure on me, dude. Mm-hmm. But then it was like, you know what? You're fucking right. And I'm going to do this because you're my brother, and I love you guys, and I love the organization. And we're going to make this work. And for basically, I had 24 hours to prepare for it. And I got to say, I probably slept for 3 hours that night and basically just learned everything. Phil showed me a couple little bits that I couldn't really figure out. And we were off to the races. And then, I guess it was May 25th, 2018. I was on stage in front of 27,000 people at Hershey Stadium with no rehearsal, because all we did at soundcheck was play Hysteria. And I told those guys, they were like, you need to run through anything? I'm like, nah, I got this. And again, it's a tribute to the Def Leppard organization. Their monitor guy, the guy Ted, who's been with them for years, is phenomenal. Their crew, their band, the organization, the tour manager Jessica Squire takes care of me. They're just the best. Their manager Mike Kobayashi. They made me feel like it's going to be okay, and I knew it was, because I think they were more nervous than I was. I certainly know Joe and Sav were, but I was fucking ready to go, and just got out there, and from the first moments of Rocket, like everything was just there, and it was like, boom, here we go, let's do this. And the footage is online; you could watch it. I don't think we missed a beat.
No, you didn't, and I've seen it. I've seen all the footage, and I gotta say, you made that chair proud. You made the Phil Collins stuff. Not only did you play solos that were, if you really wanted to, you could probably have done them note for note, but you did them so that everyone got the gist of the record solo, and you'd put a little sprinkle of you in it at some parts, and it was like, man, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's always what I try to do, and that's another cool testament to the guys. And, same thing with Dennis DeYoung, with the guitar solos, because, there are certain guitar solos where you can take more liberties than others. But even like, when I was playing Steve Clark's solo in Bringing on the Heartbreak, even with that, you could see online, I did the basis of it, kind of a hybrid of what Steve Clark did originally, and then also what Viv's, the way Viv's interpretation of it. But I also put my own flair into it. And that goes back to like, even Ed, back in the old days when he would do cover songs. He certainly didn't play the Jimmy Page solo and You Really Got Me. He did his own thing. And that's always what I did, I mean, I've never been one with cover tunes to do the note for note. Yeah, if you're doing Don't Stop Believing, you don't have much leeway, but there are a lot of other solos that you can there are little instances where you can take liberties. And I did that with like Photograph. I pretty much did the whole solo note for note, but at the end, instead of doing the fast picking thing that Phil does, that thing, that's not my style. So I did more of a legato, like the Ed thing. Instead, I went like this. I went, I did the band, I did this thing instead of doing a fast picking thing, and it sounded great. And it was me, and that, like Steve Vai did when he took, when he went out on Eat It and Smile, he did his version of the way he played, Ed's parts with Van Halen. And I thought that was cool as shit.
Yep.
As much as I love all these great guitar players, who do, try to do note for note renditions of the Van Halen stuff, I always like the guys that put a little bit of their own spin on it,
Yeah. So Caleb from Nerd Halen says, Steve might be the best hang possible in this business. I agree. I agree, because every time I hang out with Steve, every time I've hung out with Steve and every time we talk, it is like I feel like I'm a kid in a candy store with him. Just like I feel like a kid on Christmas Day talking to Steve Brown.
Well, Susie says that she loves Steve's attitude, and it's really apparent talking to Steve. A big part of your success has got to be this drive and this determination and this really kind of quiet confidence that you have in your abilities. I mean, these are all just important traits to take away in anything that we want to do in life. And you're getting a lot of praise in the chat for that. Hey, Amanda Coombs, it's nice to see you. She says that this is awesome. Beverly says Steve is a super amazing guest.
Oh, my mom has to say that.
BV Ninja says that he loves the energy and the enthusiasm. It's the way that it has to be. Say yes and worry later.
That's right.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, look, we all have, and there have been instances. I got an interesting story. I don't know if I've ever told, I told you, Dave and Ty, but I'm going to say 98, 99, I got a call to audition for Shania Twain when she blew up and when she was still married to Mutt Lange, and, she was managed by Bruce Springsteen's manager at the time and had all of Bruce's guys. And so the tour manager called me, and we had mutual friends. And of course, with the Phil Collin and Def Leppard ties, Mutt was very interested. So I sent him up some of my stuff that I did, some of the stuff with me singing, because that was an important thing. And that's one of my big regrets, because, here I am telling you all these things, that I did. But that's the one thing that I didn't do. I passed on it because I was too wrapped up in my own original thing. And looking back on it, it's a big regret for me, because I probably would have played the Super Bowl with her and did that Come On Over tour, which was massive. And whether I got the gig or not, the thing that bothers me the most, and I'm over it now, but the fact, and this is the lesson, where whatever opportunity you get and an offer you get, even if it's music you don't like, go to the audition, do the recording session, go say hi, meet the people, because you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know what sort of other thing could come out of it. And that's my big takeaway from that experience. I'm over the fact that I didn't play with her. It was stupid, but look, I had my reasons. But my biggest regret was that I didn't go and fly up to, I think it was Lake Placid, New York. They were going to fly me up, and and I knew a couple of my other friends, Jimmy Leahy, who is Dennis DeYoung's main guitar player. We traded stories about that, because he actually went up to the audition, and I'm like, fuck, man, I didn't even go. And that bothers me, because that's not a character trait that I have, because, look, we've talked about that. I say it all the time. And I think that's also, that moment was afterwards. I was like, man, I should have done that. And I'm never going to do that again. So, as much as that was a shitty thing for me, I learned a big lesson from that. So for everybody out there, you don't make that mistake. Take the fucking chance. You never know what's going to happen.
Right, and that's a great segue. There's a couple of great questions in the chat. Papa Blue says, if you want to answer this, how many mistakes do you think you make on average in a show night? And tell us the trick you use to get back into it.
Oh man, I make a lot of them that I think are mistakes. That's the big thing. what we consider mistakes, 99.9% of the people are never going to hear out in the crowd, especially when you're playing arenas, theaters, bigger places. So you can't let a mistake destroy your show, which I've seen it happen to musicians, especially younger ones. You have to just kind of, like a professional baseball player, you make an error, you gotta fucking, that's the difference. What you do when you make a mistake, how you recover from it, how you recover from striking out 3 times, how you recover from maybe screwing up a whole song. Well, you know what? It's only one fucking song. You still got 10 more to go. You better make those count. Yeah. So you can't, because believe me, man, I've seen singers especially get destroyed by where if they're having vocal problems and the monitors, I've seen that so many times. I mean, dude, look at the old videos of Axl Rose where that guy, man, completely destroyed shows because he had bad monitors. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's great to see how far he's come, and with in-ear monitors, that's just an amazing progression that we've all as musicians. I mean, for a lot of people don't like in-ears, but I love them. But again, that's another thing. Working with in-ear monitors, you're in that microscope to where you hear yourself. Now, getting back to the teaching thing, this just popped in my head. Another thing that I do to rehearse when I know, like with Leopard or Dennis DeYoung or a band that's bigger level, we're going to be using in-ears. When I rehearse here in my basement, I set up an in-ear monitor mix, because playing with in-ears is a totally different feel, because all you guys, like Caleb, you probably know, dude, when you're playing with in-ears, all that cool shit that you think you're playing and you think you're so clean and you think you're so smooth, when you're playing with in-ears, you go, holy shit, I suck. This is fucking terrible. And believe me, I've been there. And that's why, like, I set up my whole setup. I got the in-ears, I got my pedal board, I'm doing everything. And if I have the time, like if I know I have a month, I'll do like a week of rehearsing where I'm kind of loose. And then I set up the in-ears, and then it's like under the microscope. Every part I'm able to hear, every lick. And then so when I get out to the stage, there's no surprises. Mm-hmm. So that's a really big thing. Yeah. Especially nowadays, dude, there aren't many big bands that are using wedges anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm. You're right. The other question is from Fruitcake Tony. He says, was it easy to reunite with the members of Trickster in 2007, and how did that come about?
Yeah, it was very easy to reunite because first off, I put it all in motion to get the band back together. Look, we had our great success I started the band in 1983, and we went on till the better part of 1995, 96. We were still doing, kind of at the tail end of it, when it was really over. But we just, we had a great run, 12 years, and every dream we ever had came true. So we put it on pause in, I'm going to say 1996. And we always said to each other, hey man, when the time comes, we're going to know it. And 2007, that was the time, that's when there was that big Rocklahoma festival in Oklahoma where all like the hard rock bands and the hair bands played, and there were 50,000 people there. And, the timing started getting better and better, and I noticed it from every year when I would go see Def Leppard on their tours, because they never stopped throughout the 90s and through the 2000s. And every year, I think, 1999, 2001, 2002, every year that they kept touring, it started getting bigger and bigger. And then they would do these package tours. They did one great package tour with, I think it was Poison and Lita Ford. And it was just like, it kind of said to me, it's time to do this. And, I called Pete and I called Gus and PJ, and, PJ and I had never stopped playing together. So it was easy, but I bounced it off them, and, I said, let's give this a whirl. And we did it, and it was fantastic. And we made 2 phenomenal records, New Audio Machine in 2012 and 2015 Human Era, which I think are as good, if not better than, the debut Trickster from 1990 and Here in 1992. So it was easy, and it was cool because it wasn't like we were touring. We were just doing fly dates and festivals. Our first 2 gigs, we did Rocklahoma, huge festival. And then the second show we did Rockfest, where we opened for Boston and Poison in front of 40,000 people. So it was pretty cool. And, and like all great things, I don't really want to go into where we are right now with Trickster because it's not really that good of a place. But all good things come to, sadly, a stupid ending for some reason. And, because of band members that just do stupid things. And so right now we're kind of shut down. PJ and I, we were supposed to be out doing shows with Eric Martin. We do a great thing where we do Eric Martin and Trickster. We do kind of a Mr. Big Trickster best of show where I sing the Trickster songs. And that's where our head's at right now. Pete just kind of got tired of the traveling. He's a little bit older and not really into it anymore. And the drummer, I don't even need to talk about. So that's where that is, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Nerd Halen, our friend Caleb, says, Steve, tell us a story when you jumped up on stage with Van Halen, the Hagar years, and shredded a lick. Back to story. And was Big Zeke cool with you as he escorted you off?
Yeah, well, that happened. We just finally got that footage a couple of months ago or 2 months ago when I was on a show with my good buddy Izzy Presley and Greg Renoff, the great author, and a couple of guys from Ace Frehley's band, Phil and Jeremy. So we're on the show, and look, man, 1988, October something, 1988, the OU 812 tour. Van Halen's at the Garden, and one of my managers for Trickster back in the day, he was like a ticket scalper. So for I guess for us getting, we signed with them, and as a president, he said, dude, I got all you guys front row tickets for Van Halen at the Garden tonight. So we went, and it was just unbelievable, dude. And I'm sitting there literally the whole show with my leg up on the thing like this. We all were watching the show. I was 5 feet away from him. Mm-hmm. And so happened was, it was amazing, man. It was fucking awesome, and just for the record, I love all versions of Van Halen, anything with Ed and, Al and whatever singer they have. I even like some of the Shrone stuff. So just get that out of the way.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I don't have a favorite. It's all the same.
Yeah, it's all great. Different, but great. So what happened was, man, my goofball drummer, jumped up on stage at the end of the show when they did Ain't Talking About Love, and he jumped. You could see it in the video. We got the video from our buddy, what's his name, from the Atomic Punks, Joe Lester, got the video. And I never knew it existed, so I'm so thankful to finally see that. But he jumped up on stage first, and then Zeke came out, Eddie's tech, Zeke Clark, grabbed him, and brought him back. And then 5 minutes later, he's back in the front row with us. Like, we all thought he was going to get his ass kicked. Like you've seen the story. I've seen it where I've seen guys get pummeled by, security, but it didn't happen. They were so cool. And it got in my mind. And I'm like, all right, when am I going to get this chance ever to jam with Eddie? And I had it in my mind exactly what I'm going to do. Man, again, might as well jump. I'm going to fucking take this opportunity. And I'm going to get Ed to give me his guitar, and I'm going to play a song with Van Halen. That was in my mind. I'm like, this is going to happen. Because Sammy seemed like he'd be cool to let that happen. Ed seemed like that. They all did. They seemed super cool. Yeah. So what happened was, man, finally they did Rock and Roll, and I kept saying to my buddy Jim, who's no longer with us, my dearest friend in the world, my buddy Bean DeSalvo, for all the listeners out there, he was the one. He said, come on, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. And me and PJ were there, and he pushed me, and everybody else fell. And the next thing you know, and you see it in the video, I just pop up there. I ran right up to Ed, and I whisper in his ear. I said to him, let me play your guitar. And I worked. He put his arms up, and I worked my way around him, and I did the same, the typical Ed lick that he does all the time, this guy. Yeah. And I did it, and, you could see in the video, Sammy's like watching, and you could hear it. I remember how fucking loud it was up on stage. It was like, holy shit, this is what it's all about. And I'm fucking playing that. And Sammy's looking at me and Mike, but I couldn't see that. So Zeke came out and grabbed me, cool as hell. They didn't do anything. They all just were laughing. Everybody's like cracking up. And then, that was it. And then the end of the show, and I'm out on the sidewalk out of the Garden, and my buddy Jim came up and he goes, dude, Sammy Hagar said, that's one bad mofo. That's one bad mofo. So I didn't hear that because I was so in the moment. But it wasn't until I saw that video, and it was like, it's crazy how it's like, man, you know, that my buddy Jim who's no longer with us, it was like a sign, because I finally got to see what he's been saying to me for, what is it, how many years? 32 years since 1988. That I finally heard that part when Sammy goes, that's a bad mofo, you know, and that's then cool. So that was just, it was fucking nuts. So
all right,
great story.
So here's the geeky question
about it is that, you know, I always say I never played Madison Square Garden, but technically I did. So I'm cool with that.
You're damn right. And here's the very geeky question, which you probably won't remember, but how is it to put your hands on the 5150 guitar?
It was, you know, dude, it was crazy. I mean, you know, it was the best. You know, what can I say, man? And all I can say is, you know, at that time, I didn't know Ed Van Halen, and knowing what I know about him, being his friend for, you know, 30 years now or so, since 91, he's just the coolest fucking dude in the world, and just like so fun. And he knew I wasn't there to fucking punch him or be an idiot. Yeah. And it was, you know, I don't think anybody ever did that to him before. You know, I know
I've never heard of it. Never heard. So when you first told him that story again to kind of remind him, did he remember, or what did he say?
He sort of did. Sammy totally did, because fast forward to 1991, October of 1991, which is probably 3 years later, to, you know, almost right at the same time, they were playing the Meadowlands on the Fuck Tour. And it's right when I got home from being out on tour for the first Trickster record for 13 months. So I had already met Ed and been friends with him. You know, we met at the NAMM show in 1991. And so we, you know, him and Matt Bruck and myself had become friends. And, you know, so long story short, I'm backstage in the tuning room with Ed and Sammy. And then we're sitting there, and that was another surreal moment, because I'm sitting in the tuning room. It's just the three of us. And, you know, again, I'd had my success, so they knew who I was. And it was just the three of us. And I'm like sitting there, and fucking Ed's just warming up, doing his usual thing. And Sammy comes in, picks up his warm-up guitar, and just starts fucking singing, like right in front of me. And he's going, yeah, like screaming, like warming up his voice. And I'm just like sitting there like this. And I'll never forget, I was sitting, and I'm just going to myself, you got to be fucking kidding me. I can't believe, like, being out on stage watching him is cool, like in the pit, but I'm in the fucking tuning room, and Ed's sitting there warming up, and he goes, Sam, you remember this guy? And he goes, this is Steve Brown from the Trickster. He's like, you remember 3 years ago we played at the Garden and that kid jumped up on stage? And he's like, holy shit. And Sammy goes, I think he said bun of a sitch, you know, which was their thing. And he goes, holy shit, I remember that. And, you know, so they were cracking up, and so they remembered that. And that's what I put in that thing, because it kind of brought that moment full circle. Yeah. And then, you know, of course, to finally see that video, because I've been searching for so long, and the dude who posted that video, he didn't post the full show years ago. It's been on YouTube in various states, but it was never that ending, because that was the be all end all. That was the last song. And I guess he posted like most of the show, but he didn't post that last, you know, 2 minutes of the song where I got up on stage. So, you know, I got to thank Joe Lester from the Atomic Punks for finding it and bringing that up, because it's great. Now we all have it.
Amazing story.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. That's cool. What else, Ty? What do we got?
A few more questions.
Yes.
Fruit Oh, here's a comment. Tony says the debut Trickster album reminds him of getting married and making babies. Great early memories.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, you were such a young guy when you wrote those songs, made that record, and then to have that kind of success right out of the gate. Who gave you the best advice during that time that kind of keep your head level?
Well, the first guy that we ever got sort of the seal of approval from was our, Jersey brother, John Bon Jovi, Sayreville, the Sayreville guys, so John was the Bon Jovi guys were a huge inspiration to us because, of course, being from Jersey and, just the attitude that they had, man. And I loved Bon Jovi from the start, from the first record. And then really on the second record, man, I remember when we saw them, we all went to see when they opened for Rat on the Invasion of Privacy tour.
Yeah, sure. I saw that
Bon Jovi opened, man. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, I love fucking Rat. Warren DeMartini is still one of my biggest influences, a dear friend. I love him. But Bon Jovi fucking blew them away. And you knew that night that maybe not this year, but year or the year after, they're going to be the biggest band in the world. Because when I saw them on that tour at the Meadowlands, they were unbelievable. Richie Sambora became a huge influence on me. Why do you think? He was the guy that I saw that to me was like the whole package. Great guitar player, great look, great showman, and what? A great singer. He was a lead singer. I mean, we all know, dude, he's so much of a better singer than John ever was. And he was the reason that John was so good because Richie helped write those songs. But John was the first guy who taught me the business end of it, to where you got to keep your eye on the business. Write songs. He told us all about writing songs. Don't fucking worry about shred guitar. Don't worry about doing this. Write great songs. That's the most important thing. Have a good lawyer. He hooked us up with their lawyer. And the other great thing that John did was he introduced us to the Skid Row guys, Dave Sabo, Rachel Bolan, Scotty Hill. I met those guys in 1986. We met them backstage when Bon Jovi headlined the Meadowlands Arena on the Slippery When Wet tour. New Year's Eve, Cinderella opened, and we went backstage. We snuck backstage after the show, and John saw us and brought us right in, and he introduced us right to Snake and Rachel, I believe. And John said to him, dude, take care of this kid. He said, Snake, take care of Steve, hook him up. And those guys have been brothers. They've all been, incredible. But John was the first guy. And then the other guys, when Trixter started getting the momentum going, our managers that approached us, their selling point was, we have a very famous manager, one of the most successful rock managers, is our mentor who is going to help you and help us take Trixter to where we need to be. And that man was Peter Mensch, who is Q-Prime Management, who managed Def Leppard back in the day. He was AC/DC's tour accountant back in the day, and that's how he discovered Def Leppard, of course. And so that's all I needed to hear. And so Peter Mensch's for greatest advice, which is advice that I tell any young musician and even any old musician. And the greatest piece of advice that I was ever given by him was, treat any money you make in the music business like it's the last money you're ever going to make. And because we all know how quickly you could be successful and how quickly you could not be successful. So any money you make, and luckily for me, being a songwriter, I was fortunate enough to where I got a very sizable, nice publishing deal very early on with Trixter. And I was very, very smart to keep that money and save it to buy this beautiful house that I live in 27 years later, and that is paid for. So that was advice. But man, again, it goes back to my love of all things rock. And it's not only the glory, but it's the business. So my brother Mike, who's a successful, finance guy, he bought me, I think, Christmas 1988. He bought me that book, All the Things You Need to Know About the Music Business, which is kind of like one of the old Bibles by Don Passman. Phenomenal. I fucking fell in love with it. I fell in love with reading boring contracts. I used to love talking to my lawyer about shit. So you learn, and that's an important thing, man. And I learned that through John Bon Jovi and, Snake from Skid Row, because he was kind of, of course, he was John's best friend growing up, and he was, he learned from John. So I learned all those things, and those guys hooked us up with our lawyer, and, you know, kind of the rest is history, but it's still a learning process, man. And, you know, again, nowadays, all the musicians, you got to learn about, well, I'm learning about streaming and that, because that's a whole, you know, again, the music business raping and pillaging artists again. So, you know, I'm waiting for my check, you know, we're on 1 in a million, give it to me good, you know, 1 million plus streams. I think I'll get a $10 check in the mail, you know.
So
crazy.
A lot of great bands and music have come out of New York and New Jersey since the 80s.
Oh yeah.
But the coolest thing about New Jersey bands that have made it are that you guys act like gangs. Like you are so tight that you are like a gang. It's Bon Jovi, Trickster, Cinderella, all these guys from Jersey. They're all like so tight, and it's like a gang. Tell us a little about that. How about that background? Tell us a little bit about that background.
Well, it's the Jersey. I think it's the East Coast, because I think the Long Island bands were like that. You know, I think, you know, I know Bruno and Steve from Danger played in a lot of, you know, various Long Island cover bands. And, you know, we had a lot of our friends, you know, Greg Smith, I'm sure, could tell you the same story. It's the East Coast mentality, man. And the Jersey thing is very much into, you know, Bon Jovi, the brotherhood. You know, when they were on tour with Skid Row in '89 on the New Jersey tour, they had their working shirts, and the laminates said the Jersey Syndicate, the brotherhood. And that's what it was about, man. And what I equate that to is, of course, we got to go back to the way we were raised, our parents and our grandparents, you know, coming from good families and, you know, and taking care of your friends. And I think, you know, growing up on the Jersey scene, when we were playing these clubs, these all ages clubs, the China Club, Studio One, the one cool thing I would say, and I say this a lot, is that we would play these triple bills and 4 bands, 3 bands that would be way different from each other. We'd be on a bill with, you know, there was this great band Maz was in, SS Steel. They were like Judas Priest, Metallica. They were fucking heavy, all black biker jackets, you know, and we would play with them. And here's Trickster. We're wearing jeans and hot pink, you know, guinea tees and bandanas. We looked like, you know, we were kind of dressing like Van Halen on the 5150 tour, baggy pants and, you know, colorful. And then we'd play with another band. There was a great band out of Jersey called Pharaoh, and they were like Duran Duran meets Kiss. 3 totally different bands, but we all got along, and all of our fans got along. You know, we were, you know, it's no secret back in the day, Trickster, man, when we would play clubs, there'd be the most beautiful girls there. You know, I don't know why, but, you know, we had definitely the female contingency. So we had a lot of people where you'd be there and you'd see all these like gruff biker looking, Motorhead looking dudes. They came to the Trickster shows because they knew there'd be tons of hot chicks there. But, you know, that was the cool thing. And all the bands got along. And like, dude, if I blew up a guitar head, somebody would be there to help me out. Now, when we went out to LA to do our first record, I remember going and seeing the Sunset Strip for the first time and seeing how dog eat dog that was. And those fucking bands would not help each other at all. Right. They hated each other. You know, it was like, man, I remember seeing that whole flyer thing where bands would go up and staple their flyers to a telephone pole. 2 minutes later, another band would come, rip their flyer down, put their flyer up. Now, I would never do that in a club. I would never tear down somebody's poster. But that's the big difference between New Jersey and LA and the East Coast, West Coast thing. You know, as far as that, man, there was certainly a camaraderie. And look, man, look where it, you know, look the way it is, you know, Bon Jovi, Trickster, Skid Row, the 3 bands, big bands out of Jersey, you know, we're still all friends, and that speaks volumes.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's I love to see that stuff.
Yeah.
Anything in the chat real quick?
Caleb said it's a blood sport out here.
Oh yeah.
But
that's the truth. So why don't we talk about some of your gear real quick? We have a little time left. Let's talk about some of the guitars and any stories behind them. Anything that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I mean, you know, dude, look, I think we all know it already. You know, I think since I started in 1992 using the 5150s out on the Trickster tour when we were out on tour with Kiss. So what is that? I started in 1992. How many years is it?
A lot.
Yeah,
28.
28 years.
28
So I've been an endorser with EVH Gear with Ed and Matt Bruck for 28 years, and so these are my guys. This is the custom that I used with Def Leppard. Chip Ellis did a little customizing, sand the neck down because I don't like that. But this guitar is basically like the Les Paul. And what's interesting about this guitar is most people, when they see this, they think this is the one that I used when I played Wembley with Leopard for the when we did the NFL pregame thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
The cool thing about that was actually I used Ed's actual guitar, which is a really heavy relic that Chip Ellis did at EVH. He works for FMIC, and he does incredible job, but super relic. And the one thing about it, which I think nobody knows, is that it's this guitar, but it's basswood because it's super light. And so I used that when I did Wembley and when I did the 4 shows in California in October, November. And I also used one of Ed's prototype. It was a Wolfgang. It was another relic Wolfgang that had a piezo pickup in it that I used for Foolin' and for Hysteria, because that's what Viv did. So they had a prototype. So I used those 2 guitars on that, and that's neat. But this came afterwards. So I used this 2015 and some of the other shows that I did. But the difference was when I got this is mahogany. It's so heavy. Mm-hmm. And this guitar sounds just incredible. And that's it, man. You know the deal. This has been my main, this is like my main road guitar since 2012 when I got this. I think I used this on That Metal show with Eddie Trunk, Jameson, and then it's customized. So the first ever FU Tone purple bridge, and then the guys at DiMarzio sent me the Def Leppard pickups. This is the Super 3 and a Super Distortion in the neck, which is kind of like Phil's thing. He's like, oh, Steve, you got to swap those pickups out. You got to get the Super 3. And, so I did that, and it's pretty cool. And, awesome. This has been my main workhorse. I don't like binding. That's another one of my things. And I'm thinking I'm going to have that one relic. So what I did is I took a sander, and if you can see, I sanded this down because I don't like to feel that that edge on the thing. So I sanded that down, and again, this has been my main, rock horse. And then this guy this is my main studio. I used to use this a lot. I use this on Rock of Ages on Broadway when I filled in for Joel Hoekstra. This is just the main, regular, Stripe series. And this is my main for the Tokyo Motor Fest. This is my main solo guitar. This is the one I do all the solos with. Yeah, I think I used it for every solo on this record. And I love these guitars. They just sound perfect to me. Everything about them. I love the pickups in these. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I use this a lot. I use this with Rubik's Cube, and I use this on Broadway. It's gotten pretty beat up. It's got some gwank on it. It's got some blood, sweat, and tears, and some booze and some cigarettes. I don't know what it is. But it just fucking sounds great. And that's it, man. No other. I'm trying to think if there's any, wah wise. I've been endorsed with Morley pedals. I use the Morley wahs, and I love those. And I'm actually working on some cool, prototype stuff with them. So hopefully that gets to see the light of day. Every once in a while I use for certain stunt, surprise guitar shit. I used on the new record, I used the Sansamp Fly Rig. Mm-hmm. I tried the Richie Kotzen, and that was kind of cool, but on the record I used on a couple rhythm parts. I used the dude from Rammstein, that guy's, because that's modeled after GT2, which I used back in the day. GT2 is a lot on the 40-foot Ringo record. I used that. Sure. So again, man, I just love, it's like I got so much gear and I appreciate it so much that I like to use it all as much as I can.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
It's fun.
If you,
Again,
if you're not using it, get rid of it. But you
yeah,
gotta use it.
yeah. I mean, and again, it goes back to what I said before, dude. I'm still that little kid who fucking loves to plug in my guitar and try a new tone. Dunlop, they sent me, I just got one of these, which I fucking love. I've always loved the Phase 90s. But, again, it's still, I get that feeling like I was a little kid, man. So it never gets old. And that's the biggest thing, I think, to close out the interview. I think the biggest thing for everybody and the musicians out there, you really just try to keep that feeling when you were a little kid. That when you really pulled it all together and you started playing good, and that feeling you got when you got new gear and you got that great guitar sound, what you thought was a great guitar sound, and how proud you were. Because I still get that feeling, man. There's still, I still love to sit down and work with my head rush and sitting there for 5 hours programming. And then finally, when you get done and you get a great fucking guitar sound, you go, it was worth it. Yes, this is cool. And not only are you getting a great sound, you're learning something else, which again goes back to what I said. Learn different things, because you never know when you're going to need to use that skill. Yeah. And you might be able to make some money at it, programming somebody else's pedal board. I know guys that try to pay me to program their pedal board. I'm like, nah, I ain't got time for that.
That's awesome. Steve, it was a pleasure having you on here tonight. Every time we get to talk to each other, it's like Christmas for me, and I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for doing this. I would like to maybe do a part 2 at some point, sure. If you have the time and the will to do it. And again, thank you. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Ty, also, always a
pleasure. Steve, thank you so much. All the viewers, audience, frontiers.shop is where you can buy the new Tokyo Motor Fairs record. I put a link in the chat. We'll put another one right here. Click that link and buy this CD. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank
Steve,
you guys.
Stay with us for just 1 second after we shut this off, so we can say goodbye off the air.
Okay, man.
Good night, everybody.
We'll
Thanks for joining us.
See you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.